All right, hi everyone, welcome to my lightning talk about Bitcoin versus Ethereum, understanding the difference through an analogy. I'll try to explain the difference, as I said, through an analogy, so hope you are all excited for it. Before we begin, wanted to introduce myself a little bit. Hi, I'm Ikra, someone with ever-changing hobbies, but always been interested and fascinated by tech. Currently, I'm a part-time coding teacher for Code First Girls and a tech enthusiast that is having a great time learning more about the world of Web3 and blockchain development. I do want to point out that this is my first time speaking at a conference, so I am obviously excited but nervous as well. Now, coming back to my talk title, Bitcoin versus Ethereum, understanding the difference through an analogy. Before I even tell you the difference, it would be quite helpful to know what Bitcoin and Ethereum are. Now, due to the rise of Web3 technology, crypto trading, NFT drops, and whatnot in the recent times, you might have heard of the term cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, or even Dogecoin. So, what exactly are cryptocurrencies? Well, it's made of two words, crypto and currency. And currency is a standardization of money done through banknotes and coins. So, cryptocurrency is a digital type of currency using cryptographic technology. And if you know a little history about how currencies came into existence, you would have known that it was done through standardization of gold. And that is a whole different history lesson that is extremely interesting. So I would encourage you all to look that up if you are interested. But coming back to cryptocurrencies for now, so if we think of them as digital currency, we can also think of them as digital gold, perhaps. And just like in the real world, where people can go and buy gold coins in exchange for money, currency, or some other valuable goods, Bitcoin is the digital version of that can also be bought or exchanged for money, other cryptocurrencies, and valuable goods. And if you ask me, the Bitcoin logo itself specifically looks exactly like a gold coin. But obviously, it's the digital format and has a B in the middle. So Bitcoin can be thought of as digital gold, currency, or asset, whereas Ethereum, I like to think of Ethereum as liquid digital gold, as opposed to a standardized fixed solid gold coin. So with liquid gold, what can you do that you can't with a gold coin? Well, you can maybe make a gold watch with it. So it still holds monetary value, but also acts as a utility because it tells you the time. You could also turn liquid gold to a solid gold coin, right? And maybe have a different logo in the middle and call it Ether. So then Ether becomes your crypto coin or token for the Ethereum network. So Ethereum provides utility and asset. And I think this is where a lot of people get confused with the terminology Bitcoin and Ethereum, specifically including me when I first came across them. So Bitcoin or Ether becomes digital solid gold asset or currency, whereas Ethereum becomes digital liquid gold or utility and aids in us creating things such as the gold watch, but using blockchain technology. Coming back to Bitcoin and Ethereum, apart from the analogy differences, I'd like to mention some other differences between them. Both of them make use of blockchain. However, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency that lives on a blockchain network. It also aims to be an alternative to the money system, to keep records of accounts, transactions, and addresses using blockchain technology. Whereas Ethereum is a blockchain based network that hosts other uses of blockchain, including cryptocurrency. So it is more of a general purpose a blockchain with more than a means of becoming a money system. There are also differences between the cryptographic algorithm they both are based on. Bitcoin uses something called SHA-256, whereas Ethereum uses Ethash. a family of Kekak. Similarity comes into play, however, when we talk about the consensus protocol. As of now, both of them rely on the same consensus protocol called proof of work. However, Ethereum plans to move to something called proof of stake very soon in what they are calling the merge. So coming back to consensus protocol, I'm not going to cover the difference between proof of work and proof of stake in detail because it can be a whole talk on its own. But very briefly, to understand, as blockchain technology is decentralized, there needs to be some way to reach consensus on which transactions to include in a block and which block to then be included in a blockchain. And that is done through a consensus protocol, examples of which are proof of work and proof of stake. So, looking at proof of work specifically, that requires, as you might have guessed it, work, right? Because that becomes the center of the consensus. So all the miners try to figure out a solution to a cryptographic puzzle, and whoever gets it first gets to take the incentives associated with it. And this is the reason why it takes a lot more computational energy to uh, to have your blockchain based on proof of work consensus. And this is where the concerns with the environment comes into play. Now, coming to proof of stake, requires you to deposit some stake, like the name suggests, to become a miner or a validator. And instead of everyone mining to be the first one to solve a puzzle, a few chosen validators get the opportunity to validate a block. And if they do it right, great, they get their incentive. But if they behave as a bad actor, they lose their stake they put to being a validator. So it requires, and this is the reason why it requires a lot less computational energy. This is again an absolute basic explanation of the two. So again, highly recommend researching more on it if you are interested. And again, coming back to Bitcoin and Ethereum, those were the differences that I wanted to point out between the two. With the main difference between Bitcoin is a digital cryptocurrency, whereas Ethereum has its own cryptocurrency called Ether, but also has other utility aspects to it. I'd also like to point out that I'm not trying to prove that Bitcoin or Ethereum has superiority over the other. They just have different goals in mind and cater to different needs. So if you have a question in mind along the lines of which is better, Bitcoin or Ethereum, I would not be able to answer that, just how I wouldn't be able to answer what is the best programming language out there. So now coming back again to Ethereum, as as I've been trying to describe that as more of a, it's as more than a replacement for money system, and trying to use the analogy that it's digital liquid gold. So you might be wondering, well, it's not digital liquid gold, it's just an analogy. So what is the actual form of gold watch that you can make with Ethereum, right? What are the things that you can make with them? So you might be wondering what and how to actually make things with Ethereum, right? So to answer the what first, with blockchain technology, a lot of emphasis is given to decentralization. And with decentralization, let's look at that. So with regular technology, if you can create apps, with blockchain, you can create something called dApps, which are decentralized apps, which look and function like regular apps, but can't be controlled by a single person or entity. Instead, it is on a peer-to-peer blockchain network. Another popular example of what you can create on Ethereum are DAOs, so decentralized autonomous organizations. And again, as opposed to a centralized organization with a hierarchical structure, DAOs focus more on a flat and fully democratic structure where any policy or decision is made by the members voting. And again, because all of this is done on the blockchain itself, there is a record for every vote and no need for a middleman to count or even manipulate the outcome. It relies more on a trustless system. A last example I'd like to mention that you can implement using Ethereum, but not go too much into detail because I'm still learning about them, are something called NFTs, so non-fungible tokens. Whenever the term NFT is brought up in a conversation, my mind straight away goes to just some sort of art, be it pixel art or something to do with bored apes. But from my research, I've come to realize that NFTs are not necessarily constricted to piece of digital art. It can be any sort of data. It can be digital art or video, but also a ticket, a certificate, a piece of text, whatever information, whatever digital information you want to store in a non-fungible format, which is again a feature of how blockchain works. So those are some of the applications of Ethereum, some of the many applications of Ethereum actually. And that's how we covered the what. So let's get to the how. Again, very briefly. So the way the how works in Ethereum is by creating something called a smart contract. You might be wondering, what in the world is a smart contract if you've never heard the term before? And to understand smart contracts, let's understand phones first. So back in the day, phones used to be just phones, and I'm not sure who was behind naming technologically advanced phones as smartphones, but basically phones that allow people to do more than just make phone calls, especially browse the internet and run software programs, are called smartphones, like we all know them and are familiar using. So just like smartphones, smart contracts are more technologically advanced than regular contracts because they are written in code and deployed to a decentralized blockchain. So you do not need a centralized third party to enforce them. They're just self-executing and deterministic in nature, which is perhaps why they are looked as smarter than regular contracts and called so. And I'd like to imagine that just how people were at one point confused, hesitant, or even scared to use smartphones when they first came out, but that is sort of unimaginable now. This could very well be the case with smart contracts too, where they are readily understood and used some point in the future. But coming back to the point where I mentioned smart contracts are written in code, which is what makes it, self-executing and deterministic in nature. To write something, be it code or not, you very well need a language for it, right? So for Ethereum smart contracts specifically, they are written in this programming language called Solidity. It is an object-oriented programming language, and the programs in Solidity are run on something called EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine. The way I like to make sense of that is by thinking of Java. Java is also an object-oriented programming language that uses JVM, Java Virtual Machine, to run. And I have wondered why Java that already exists was not used for creating smart contracts in Ethereum. Why was Solidity created? Again, this is something that I'm still reading up more about. But what I've learned so far is if you need to have a mechanism in place to handle gas fees as well as have special data types, such as an Ethereum address, rather than storing it as a string, which is perhaps why Solidity was created to cater to those specific blockchain development needs. So to write smart contracts for for Ethereum, you need a programming language called Solidity. And for Bitcoin, let's get back to Bitcoin for a second. For Bitcoin too, there is a need for language. But instead of programming language, you use a scripting language called the BSP, Bitcoin Scripting Language, which was again created with the needs of Bitcoin in mind, to be a digital cryptocurrency in order to make money programmable. So it doesn't really need as many capabilities as Solidity does, because again, we're trying to make more useful things with the Ethereum blockchain technology, whereas Bitcoin is just being a replacement for money. But it's quite fascinating to know that even down to the language implementation itself, Bitcoin and Ethereum are quite different, despite both of them being based on the blockchain technology as a whole. So that's all the information I would like to share for now in this talk. Hopefully, it makes sense as to how Bitcoin and Ethereum are different, some of the things you can make on Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies, and how to do that. I realize that this talk is not technical at all, and it never claimed to be. Personally, I like understanding brand new concepts that my brain has never heard of through associating them with concepts that I'm already familiar with, which is what the goal of this talk was. I really hope you all learned something and are excited to dig deeper into blockchain development, be it on Ethereum or not, or even explore how and why Bitcoin came into existence as a digital cryptocurrency. Let me know if there are any questions or feedback you have for me. Here are my socials if you would like to connect and ever reach out with any questions or feedback. Again, super grateful for this opportunity. My first time speaking, so I'm definitely nervous and like, I don't know if it went well, but again, thank you. Thank you for hearing my talk, and thank you, Women Who Code, for giving me this opportunity. Really, really, really appreciate it.